so I think I'm trying to understand why us. Like, you have worked with several development teams, and this was a very critical situation when you were looking for another dev team to help. So what led you to kind of trust us?
So I did a bunch of interviewing. Initially, I used a few tools and narrowed it down to 4 or 5 candidates, and then I spoke to the different ones. And I really asked for different perspectives on the issues that we had, which namely were that it was an early stage startup. There was one dev who really had all the tribal knowledge and nobody else. So we needed to go from that one person to really form a team and create a process. And at the time, I was thinking that we would start over from scratch because it seemed like too difficult a lift to take everything out of this one person's head and teach it to a team. It seemed like maybe we'd be better off just kind of blowing it up and starting over. And different folks I spoke to had different perspectives. Most agreed that the best perspective would be to start over. But I recall you had a different point of view, which was that we could take what we had and slowly transition it to kind of a more standard or more mature approach with multiple devs, processes, et cetera. And I kind of like that because even though in a way there was probably less work, or more difficult work in transitioning from an existing platform to a new one. What you said made sense in terms of looking at the code, figuring out the reusability, that there was a lot that we could reuse. And that started to build my confidence that you were on the same side as me, that you weren't just trying to generate the most hours, but actually really trying to figure out how we do a project that meets everybody's needs.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for saying that. When we met first time, it was like, I'm stuck. That's what I heard over and over. So, or we are stuck. So how is it now? And I know that phrase was meant for IT, right? We're not being able to move or make a lot of progress. How is it now?
Yeah, it's incredibly different, actually. So I'm just doing the math in my head. It's been about 8 months now since we started,
right.
And it's the way the team ought to be. We have a number of good people. So any one person goes away, we can still keep running the company. We have great processes. We have task management. We have Scrum. Things are spec'd out. There's a pipeline. I mean, it really works the way it's meant to work, which is on one hand very lightweight, because you know me, that's how I like to work. I don't want to overburden the process. But on the other hand, there's enough process where everything's kind of replicable. When we come up with an idea, I can be really confident that it's not going to get dropped, it's going to get prioritized properly, and it will make it to production in a bug-free way. And I mean, that's really all I could ever hope for in a dev team.
Yeah, awesome. I'm really glad to hear that, and I'm super happy that we were able to help. I know it was a kind of complicated situation, right, with previous team working on it, and now there is a kind of different team. So yeah, for sure, it was kind of complex situation.
It was, yeah. I mean, it's basically a bespoke e-commerce platform, and that was another thing we talked about early on. I did my Googling, and I said, well, why don't we build this on top of Magento, or why don't we build this on top of Shopify, or on top of X? I think I probably sent you 5 or 6 different ideas.
I know, right.
And we really decided to do it on our own platform, which I think in retrospect was a really good choice, because here we are 10 months later, we own everything. We don't have to pay anyone monthly for anything, but even better, everything's 100% serviceable. If I don't like, one weird way that checkout works, it's totally within our power to reinvent that piece of checkout. I don't have to, hire third-party developers who are an expert in another language. I don't have to, call CEOs and beg them to make this capability possible.
True.
We really control our own destiny. So I think that was another good choice that we made early on.
Any suggestions, feedback? What are we looking in next 6 months?
Yeah, I guess I would just to conclude, I would say we've been quite happy with working with you and your team, Subodh. You've been extremely fair with us in terms of your involvement. I really appreciate that. You've brought good people to the table, and when people need to be replaced, you've been very open about that and very fair throughout the process. And we got the result we wanted. So honestly, I couldn't be happier, and I'm really glad we got a chance to work together.
Thank you, Mark. I super appreciate that.